Today's news.
Deportation standoff.
This is certainly the most brazen that the president and his allies have been.
Cheering the terrorists.
We've always been at the bottom rung of the ladder, and it's time for that to change.
Donated organs thrown away.
I consider this to be an existential threat to the whole restaurant system.
Good morning, I'm Steve Kathan with the CBS World News Roundup. The White House is again at odds with the U.S. Supreme Court in the case of a man mistakenly deported to El Salvador. The administration has balked at working to get him back, and El Salvador's president says he's powerless to act. CBS's Nancy Cordes reports President Trump has suggested sending Americans convicted of crimes to El Salvador.
President Trump said his partnership with El Salvador's President Nayib Bukele is working out so well, he might want to send U.S. citizens to Bukele's prisons, too.
Well, I'm talking about really bad people.
Former U.S. District Judge John Jones says Trump's idea would likely run afoul of the Constitution's 8th Amendment, which prohibits cruel and unusual punishment.
Suppose you housed an American in this prison, and suppose that American had his conviction overturned. If the administration is being consistent, they would say, we have an innocent man sitting in the prison, but the president of El Salvador won't return him, so he has to sit there.
Something similar happened just yesterday when President Bukele said he would not release a migrant the U.S. had mistakenly sent to a Salvadoran prison last month. Trump's Deputy Chief of Staff, Stephen Miller, made it clear the White House does not plan to push for his release.
He's an illegal alien from El Salvador. Where does he belong? In El Salvador.
Now to Vermont, where a Palestinian man who led protests against the war in Gaza as a student at Columbia University was detained by ICE agents at an immigration office where he expected to be interviewed about finalizing his U.S. citizenship. Vermont Democratic Senator Peter Welch.
I do not believe we should be deporting people who are here legally just because the president doesn't like what they say.
Mohsen Madawi has held a green card for a decade, and he co-founded the Palestinian Student Union at Columbia with Mahmoud Khalil, who was detained earlier by ICE. The Trump administration says it will freeze more than $2 billion in grants and other federal money to Harvard University after the school rejected White House demands that included leadership reforms and a merit-based admissions and hiring policy. Georgetown University law professor David Cole is a former director of the ACLU.
This is part of a concerted campaign by the Trump administration to neutralize potential opposition or criticism of its lawless action.
The man accused of setting the Pennsylvania governor's mansion on fire was arraigned on charges including attempted murder last night. President Trump has suggested he might temporarily exempt the auto industry from tariffs he's imposed. He says it would give car makers time to adjust their supply chain. The last few weeks, we've heard the critics of the Trump tariffs, but CBS's Janet Shamlian has more on an industry that could get a boost from them.
In Bioladatry, Alabama, shrimping trawlers haven't been out on Gulf waters in years due to a flood of cheaper imported shrimp from countries like India and Ecuador.
I had 12 fishing vessels, decided it was getting so tough on me, I sold 3, tied up 3.
Many in the city of 2100 felt it, including Henry Barnes, who makes shrimp nets.
I imagine I'm down to about 50% of what I was 8 years ago.
And you're probably nearing retirement age.
I'll probably have to work a half a day the day they bury me.
And they're unapologetic that tariffs will likely make shrimp more expensive for Americans.
You can't please everybody all the time, and I don't try to. We've always been at the bottom rung of the ladder, and it's time for that to change.
It's 4 minutes after the hour.
Well, that's today's news. I didn't hear any good news, did you? I didn't think so. I guess it's all about perspective. The glass is half full. Well, as always, I'd like to thank you again for coming along with me on these Dash Cab News adventures. It's 51 degrees in Pleasanton, California.